Hey Weather Warriors, in this video I'm going to show you how to use the weather models using a website called windy.com. I'm going to go over the basic features of this, the basic overview of what weather models are. I'm also going to show you a couple secret gems on this website because I keep finding new things every day. It's a pretty cool website. And before we begin, click the subscribe button below if you like daily forecast breakdowns, extreme weather events, much more detail than you'd see on TV, and weather forecasting tutorials like this. We got it all on this channel. Click below and share this with a friend that you'd think would be interested as well. So what I'm going to do first is show you the pros and cons of this website compared to other weather model sites. Then I'm going to show you the basic functionality. So the pros. Well, the pros of this website, of using this website, is they've got stunning visual data. It's really for visual people. You can see these little streaks. Those are wind flow, basically little wind particles moving throughout the atmosphere, so you can really see the motion going on in the atmosphere. Where do you think a low pressure is? One right in the middle of there, and you can see it all flowing in there. So it's really cool in that feature. You got beautiful data, very tightly contrasted color schemes, and high resolution. Now, it's also got a really good navigation system. You can just right-click and whoops, turn that off. Right-click and you can view a sounding and all sorts of things like that, little features like that. You can also move all over the place, and you can't do that on other websites, and zoom in and out right with a few clicks of a button. And the cons of this website is it's not as detailed as other weather model sites. So if you're more of an intermediate advanced, you probably want to look at other websites for more detailed data. This is good for beginners and maybe even intermediates. But even then, there's still a few features on here that I still use because it's just beautiful visual data, and we'll use this on the channel from time to time. So, there's a lot more to meteorology than just this website, but this is a good little starting point. So what we're going to do is look at the functionality now. So I'm going to just go over each little section here. We're going to start off in the settings up here in the upper left-hand corner, that hamburger menu. And we'll go over to the settings. This is your basic settings of this website. You can actually log in up here and create an account in the upper right-hand corner, and you can actually save your maps and stuff. So if you have like presets, you can save that. But I'm not going to go over all of that. You can just figure that one out. Everything else I'll go over here. And so the settings, you can change your wind to like different metrics, miles per hour, knots, etc., temperature, Celsius, Fahrenheit, and you can do that with a lot of other things as well. Down here is the animation of the wind. So you can they have some presets here that kind of change the look of the wind, and you can also change like the density, so more arrows or less arrows, the speed, faster or slower. Now you got to be careful because you can actually create biases in your mind if you change up the wind too much, and it might look faster than it actually is or slower than it actually is. So you have to just be mindful of that. So I like to stick with kind of one look and not change all these settings up too much. You can change the size, contrast, length, and stuff like that. You can also turn on the lat long grid if you're looking for like longitude, latitude, and stuff like that. And then all that other stuff not as important. But then we have color settings down here, and you can actually look at your color tables for your different metrics here. So like right now we're looking at we'll look at rainfall accumulation, which is accumulating rainfall across the United States, and you can change the colors. So maybe you don't like that green and you can change it to purple. Now obviously that doesn't look as good, but I like to leave it the same, but you can definitely do anything you want really with that. And then you can save your color defaults and maps. So you can also get code here as well, for the numbers if you want to just copy it into a text document and save them. So that's kind of cool. So these are your basic settings. You can change the background map, which if there's data on it, usually you can't see it, but when the map's playing, sometimes you'll be able to see topography and all types of stuff. So that's that, and you can hit save there if you want to save your settings. Menu, we already went over that. Another thing, I'll go over that in a second. What you can do is you can search for locations up here. So we'll go over the location bar. Let's go to Oklahoma City. So Oklahoma City, we'll type that in. You can click that. And so when you type that in and hit enter, I don't know why it zoomed out, but it'll find Oklahoma City. You see that little box or that little circle blowing up there. And so we're actually zoomed in here. And you can actually see the roads pop up. Lots of little cities pop up. And we're still in that rain view. So you can actually see these numbers here that show the rainfall for all these little cities. In Oklahoma City, 0.96. Now, so I have Oklahoma City highlighted here. What you can actually do is click this heart button, and you can add to your favorites. Okay, and so if you click this, you'll have Oklahoma City right in there. So you can just click it. It'll find that location. There it pops up. And then below you got this meteogram. And this kind of shows what the different models and forecasts are showing for the next few days here. You got temperature, hours. So, this is hours in advance. So 3 hours in advance, 6 hours, 9 hours. And you can actually scroll and you can see a little thing pop up here. You can read that up there as well. You got wind down here, wind direction, pressure, rain, all sorts of stuff. So you can actually see your weather forecast with time for your city or any other city you want. So that's kind of cool. You can also add alerts for this spot. So you can get little alerts as well. And you can get push notifications, but you have to log in. Again, I'm not going to go over all of this, but you can like alerts. So say, oh, we need alerts for like 50-mile-an-hour winds. So you can just scroll over to about 50 miles an hour or greater, set it over there like that, go up to 89 miles an hour, whatever the maximum is, and you can get alerts for it. So if there's 50-mile-an-hour winds, you'll get like a little push notification alert box that pops up and lets you know that that is headed your way. You can also do direction. So this is pretty incredible stuff. And I might actually look more into doing this for the channel. So if I see some pop up, I'll make videos for it. So I think this is a really cool little feature here on here. You can do hours and durations, like 6 hours in advance, 9 hours in advance, parts of days. So like if you only want to be alerted from 9 to 10 a.m. or something, 9 to 12 a.m. here, different days of the week. I mean, it's just so much you can do with this. You can also do waves, rain, snow, and much more. And you can get little notifications sent to your email box. So I actually haven't done the push notifications thing. So I think really what this is, it's emailing you alerts. So I'm not sure if they do push notifications. I'll have to test that sometime. But I know you get emails at the very least. So that would be that little section. Now what we're going to look at is a little bit about this bottom right-hand corner and the bottom bar here. What we'll look at first is this bottom bar in the left-hand corner. And this is your timeline. So since we're on rain accumulation, you can go by different times. So like next 12 hours, next 24 hours, 3 days, 5 days, 10 days in advance. And essentially what this is doing is it's stacking on top of each other. So it'd go 12, 24, 3, 5, and 10. And 10 days would be 10 days worth of precipitation. So it's kind of stacking all the rain on top of each other. So that's kind of cool. What I'm going to do, and I'll go over this in a second, is kind of switch to winds. Because what I want to show you is this timeline here. This timeline at the bottom of the screen is your timeline into the future. So this is like right now. Then we can go to like next Tuesday. And this goes every, hour, few hours or so. And you can see the weather change as we go day to day across the United States. You can also play this, which adds animation. And there's ways to speed that up, I believe, as well in the settings. But yeah, that's usually pretty fast as it is. And so, that's your little timeline. Your color key is down here. So, you might be wondering, what's the green? The green's about 10 to 20 miles an hour. And you can see that down there. You also get like little values of the wind and metrics as you zoom in and find the cities. You can actually get little tiny values that pop up and show you your wind speed as well. The next thing is the different models right here in the middle. So you can look at the NAM, which is a regional model. So if we zoom out here, you can see it only covers the United States. This is a model that only covers the United States. It takes all of the weather in this little grid right here and then models it essentially into the future. And the NAM, you'll notice, doesn't go as far out. It actually only goes a few days out. And the reason for that is because it's only modeling a section of the Earth. And, After a while, it becomes a lot less accurate because it doesn't have the rest of the globe. So it starts to run out of accuracy because maybe there's a storm system out here, like sitting off the west coast a ways. And after a few days, maybe that comes into this grid. But when the model started taking in all the data, it didn't see that because it's outside the grid. And so it'll start to kind of disrupt things. So that's why it only goes out a few days. Now, it does pull from the GFS a little bit, but that's a little more advanced. We'll talk about that in a different video. But that's the NAM. The ECMWF is essentially the European computer model, which has been known, to be very accurate. And you can see it's global. So you can go anywhere across the globe. You can go down to Australia, zoom into Australia, and you can find weather down there in Australia. So pretty awesome with that as well. So we'll go back into the US and whoops. So it's a little bit finicky with the zooming if you use a scroll bar like you see here. I'll have to figure that one out, see if I can slow that down. But that's the European computer model, and then you got the GFS, which is pretty cool as well, and it's the same as the Euro. It's all over the globe. You can add, you got your favorites there, forecasted weather, reported wind. This is a little section where you have like station models, so that's like current wind conditions. So if you go into the future, those things won't change. That's actually the current wind across the United States. So you can kind of compare the current with the future. So that's kind of cool. Then you got reported temperatures. So those are the current temperatures. Airports, dash cams. So you can view little dash cams. And as you zoom in, there should be more that pop up. Sometimes they do. In this case, we got a few out here in Iowa, so look at that real quick. Click this one out in Iowa, and a little dash cam will pop up, and you can actually go back in time as well. Now, most of these are just images, but yeah, like that, it's a little bit delayed, but you can see going back in time. And so that's pretty cool. You can use that to just kind of view the weather across the United States. So let's find an area where there's a storm system right now. So we'll go back to about right now. And I'll go over that up here in a second. Well, there is a pressure system out there. So there's probably something up here in Michigan that'd be kind of cool to look at. Or just northwest of there. Maybe up here. Maybe there's some snow falling or something like that. Because there's a low pressure system right over the lakes. And yeah, there's some snow on the ground. Hard to tell if it's falling. But yeah, there was some snow earlier. So that little storm system kind of moved through. And look at that. 2 weeks ago, it was green. It looked like fall, and now it looks like winter. So you can kind of go forward in time. So that's a really sweet feature that you can use. And then paragliding spots, if you're into that. So kind of random, but yeah, those are on there as well. You can see, look at that. If you want to paraglide into the blizzard, probably not a good idea. But there are some spots over there. And then we got more layers. And we'll move that over here. So this section up here is your basic parameters. So right now I'm on the GFS, and you can look at your basic parameters up here. So radar and satellite, you can turn that on, and you can turn the weather radar on. Now, obviously the weather radar is not the models, okay? This is the actual radar that's going on right now. And you can go back in time, kind of view the radar, play it, and then you can change your speed down here to turtle, rabbit maybe, or goat. I'm not sure why goat is after rabbit, but it could not be a goat. It's got to be something else. But nonetheless, you can change the speed. And so you got your DBZ down there. So you'll notice your color table actually changes based off the parameter. So that's your radar, and you can look at satellite. Now there's 3 different satellites. Visible is your visible satellite. So that's what the satellite actually sees. Now, old satellites, before GOES 16 and 17 came out, you only could see whatever the sun lit up. But now they have technology where you can actually see in the dark with the visible satellite. So pretty cool there. And so this is definitely pulling GOES 16, 17 data, but you can see it's still kind of hard to see. It's better where there's light. So it's nighttime in the US, but if you go way west, it's daytime. And you can zoom very far in and get really nice detail of these features. Now, we got the infrared, which is measuring the temperatures of the cloud tops. And you can see this is better for night Well, it's good in general, but it's a lot better for night when you can't see as well. You can see that storm system in the northeastern United States. And then you got another version of the infrared. This is kind of with color. So previous one was just grayscale. This one's with color. And you can see the cloud temperature tops right here, colder. Usually a little bit cloudier and thicker clouds when you get deeper colors like that. So, lighter colors in this case. So that's your infrared. So that's going to be your radar and satellite. Now we're going to look at the model field. So wind is your wind, and again, you can fast forward that into the future. So it's basically the model's forecasting of wind, and that's at the surface. Now, how do you change levels? So maybe you want to see the wind in the jet stream. This little thing over here, you can just drag it right up. Try that again. Drag it right up. So the jet stream is going to be around 300 millibars. Oops, did not mean to do that. Go back out here. So it's going to be around 300 millibars, which is the same thing as 300 HPA, so hectopascal. And you can also see your levels average of 9,000 meters. And this is kind of where your jet stream is. Obviously, right now, there's an extremely powerful jet stream moving through the U.S., so I thought I'd make the video now to kind of show this. You got a trough in the west. And so this is your jet stream, your main jet stream. You want to look for little streaks like this right here. So it's kind of where your main polar air mass or jet stream is going to be. Your polar air masses are going to usually be the north of the jet stream, and your warm air is going to be to the south. Storm systems usually occur kind of where all that divergence is. It's that wind kind of spreading out ahead of a trough. So it's kind of a little cheat sheet there for you. And so you can look at that. Somewhere in the mid-levels of the atmosphere is usually around 700 millibars. It's kind of in the mid-levels that you can kind of measure moisture and lift in there. 850 is your low-level jet typically. This is kind of good to see pressure systems without all the surface influences. So sometimes mountains and other things will kind of screw things up. Now, mountains, there's still mountains that get above 850, but this is kind of better for like areas in the East Coast and the central U.S., and there's a little less friction, so you can see the low pressure systems in a little more smooth detail, a more smooth manner, I guess you would say. So you can see that low pressure system just swirling like crazy out there as we move that thing to 850. And if you go back to the surface, you'll see it's a little bit different. The winds are a little bit weaker. So if you have a trouble time seeing a low pressure at the surface, or if it's kind of disorganized, just try looking at different levels and see if you can find it. The jet stream obviously isn't going to show it as well because it kind of changes as you go up in the upper levels. But you can kind of see an upper level low here. That's not always the case. Sometimes your lows will actually be over here and the jet will be riding on top of them. So nonetheless, that's how you use the different levels. Next thing we'll look at is the rain and thunder. So you can look at rain accumulation, and again, here's your little bar. It changes a little bit, so over the next several days, you can look at that. Snow accumulations, snow depth. The difference between snow accumulation and snow depth is snow accumulations, how much is going to stack up over a certain period of time. Snow depth just measures the current snow depth, so it actually counts for melting. So maybe 10 inches of snow falls in, maybe Wisconsin or something, but maybe, let's go a week into the future, go next Wednesday. Maybe it, for whatever reason, ignore this right here, but for whatever reason, maybe it goes up to 60 degrees and it melts, and maybe it's down to 0 here. So that would essentially mean that there was some melting, but obviously that's not the case. But that's snow depth. Precipitation type. We'll go over back to where there was a storm here in the Midwest, and here's a big old storm system right here. Precipitation type is going to measure your precipitation type, so pretty self-explanatory. You can see your key down here, kind of hard to read on this video, but essentially the blues and greens. Well, the greens are going to be your rain. Freezing is going to be that pinkish magenta color. Mixed ice is going to be more purple. Snow is obviously white. Then you got wet snow, which is this area right here, that kind of that greenish bluish color. And then you got rain with snow and ice pellets in other colors as well, which I do not see as much on here, but you can get all these different precipitation types on this map, so that's pretty cool, and even more detailed than some other websites that I've seen. Thunderstorms, I I think this might be measuring flash density of like lightning and stuff. It doesn't say on here. Probably what's going on is it's measuring lightning in the air. And so obviously the more lightning, the greater your thunderstorms are. And not always, but sometimes. And you can see obviously thunderstorms here Friday forecasted here in Oklahoma, where a severe weather outbreak in localized areas could occur. Then you got some other thunderstorms up there. You know, general rule of thumb is when you see a cold front like this, you can see that air kind of blowing through a surface trough or a cold front, and then you got wind coming up from the south. Kind of out ahead of that, you'll get storm systems that blow up along the front, and that's definitely the case. So kind of cool. Temperatures, obviously pretty simple, just measuring the temperatures in the atmosphere. I'm going to turn this back down to the surface. So, you know, what's also kind of cool here is you have surface temperatures, but you can also look at the temperatures in the upper levels. So you can go up to 300 millibars and see the upper level temperatures. So way up high. So that you can also do the same thing with every other ingredient that I just said. And then humidity, this is measuring moisture. 700 millibars is a good little level to measure humidity with storm systems. See if I can get that to work here. And we'll go into Saturday here. So you can actually see this low pressure system. And you can see your moisture. You can see how out ahead of it, it's actually pretty moist. And then you get this little dry punch. And that's very common with these low pressure systems. You'll get a dry slot, and you can actually see it in the 700 millibar moisture really effectively. So that's kind of cool to analyze how moisture is circulating around low pressure systems. This is good for measuring the strength of a low pressure system, typically in fall, winter, and spring. It's not as good for severe weather, but it's definitely something to look at. It's better for more dynamic systems. So that's your humidity. Then CAPE, that's going to be your instability in the atmosphere. And you can see Friday, where those thunderstorms develop, you get higher amounts of instability. So this is indicative of thunderstorms and sometimes severe weather if you have a strong jet stream that's placed on top of the instability. So that's something kind of cool. Sea surface temperature, it's just going to measure pretty much your sea surface temperature. So you can see where areas are warm and cold. I don't think it has sea surface temperature anomalies. That would be cool if they had that. Air quality, you can kind of measure how, where all the pollution is in the atmosphere. So if there's bad air quality, you can check that out and see where that's at. Pressure essentially measures your pressure. So let's see if, it's interesting because the side bar actually disappeared for that one. So you actually don't get a view the upper level pressure because, and the reason for this, and I'll get over that right now, is if you scroll all the way down, so you click this button right here, more layers. I don't know why that zoomed out. Try that again. So click that button, then scroll all the way down and find this button that says geopotential height. Okay, I've clicked that button. Let's see if that works. Still doesn't quite work, but what we can do, if we can't see the pressure in the upper levels, what we'll do is we'll turn on the wind. Okay, and then what we're going to do is go to 500 millibars or 300 millibars at the jet stream. So we'll put this up here into the jet, and you can see the pressure or the geopotential height line. So pressure isobars are only measured at the surface, and then when you go up higher, it actually measures height, like height of the pressure column, and you can actually see. This helps you kind of see the jet stream in more detail, and you can see troughing and ridging, and you can see your low pressure systems here, and you can see your height line. So that's kind of the way you turn those on in the upper levels. Now we'll go back to the surface, go to more layers here, and it's still height lines, but what we'll do is we'll change it back to pressure when we're at the surface, and you can actually turn these on and off. So you can turn that off, and then you can turn it on, so you can see your pressure isobars lines, and then if you fast forward, you can see that powerful low pressure system. So that kind of helps you see this. Another thing that's kind of cool is the wind. It kind of follows those isobar lines. Another thing to look for is little kinks in these isobar lines to find fronts. You can see there's one right here. So there's going to be a front right there. Again, I have more forecasting videos on that in more detail on the channel, but it's the very basics here. So that's kind of cool. And then you can also change on temperatures. So temperature is essentially the lines of constant temperature. So you see this 30-degree line right here. So it's 30 degrees all along that line. Now, I'm sure you can change the densities of those, I would guess. I'm thinking you can in the settings. But nonetheless, this is the very basics here. You can see freezing altitude as well, where it's essentially freezing in the atmosphere. So that's some pretty cool stuff there. Now, to change your menu on the side, if you don't want all these icons, you can turn them on and off. So you can see that disappeared. You can turn those on, and there's actually more features. Like you can turn fog on, and we can look for that symbol. So that little 3- symbol right there, you can turn the fog on, and you can find areas where there's fog in the United States. I'm not going to go over all of these, but you can definitely have more parameters on your maps by just searching for these types of things. And here, if you're a visual person, you can check out your gallery, so you can just kind of see what they look like beforehand. An outdoor map is going to be kind of your terrain, and you can see look at that. That's pretty sweet. You can see your terrain, like your mountains, and you can then turn on like maybe snowfall. So we'll go over here. We'll turn on rain and thunder. So when you click these things, it expands more icons. So keep that in mind. You can turn on snow depth and zoom in to some of these mountains. So let's see here. So this would be good for the skiers. You can, so I guess that disappears if you zoom all the way in, but you can kind of remember this. So for instance, like just I'm going to pick one random mountain here, Galena Mountain. You can zoom back out. That thing will pop up, the snow depth. You can see it's about 24 to 30 inches in that area. So you can definitely zoom in and then turn on webcams. You can kind of see a preview of the snow, obviously, as well. So just all sorts of sweet stuff you can do here. You can see the wind as well. The NAM is actually better when you're dealing with like small features like the mountains and stuff. So keep that in mind. But to turn the NAM on, you have to go back in time to a time range that it fits in. And actually, it won't let me do the snow depth. We'll see that. Okay, so it doesn't have snow depth. So the NAM actually doesn't have all of the features. But nonetheless, still plenty of things to work with. So this is going to be new snow. And so that's kind of cool. And you can see, well, where's your fresh snowpack going to fall? You can kind of zoom in, find the mountains, and then zoom back out, and then look at that. So you can get really ultra detailed here. Now, obviously, you see the snow is mostly following the mountains there. And again, sometimes it's kind of finicky, so you got to look out for that. So that would be that. So I pretty much covered most of that features. We'll go back to like satellite, go back to list view. And then, you can save here. You can turn expert mode on and off. Expert mode just adds all of these icons if you're, not wanting to turn them all on and off. And so that's really handy there. And there's one other thing I wanted to show you here. When you right-click, so right-click on just a random location, you can actually do something called Show Weather Picker. That's going to pop up a little icon, and it shows you your temperature or whatever you're looking for in that region. You can also click this again, Forecast for this location. So this is showing your weather forecast, kind of like we went over earlier. You can go into time, into future here, and you can see all the way through Monday. It has a little information about the location. You can check the GFS, MeteoBlue, NAM. You can compare different models. So just all sorts of sweet stuff. And you can look at it's kind of the basics of the weather models on the side there. So that's kind of cool. So get rid of that. And then another thing is distance and planning. This is a cool feature you can use. So what you'll do is you'll click on a location, and then you'll click on another location. So this goes from about Scott City. You can drag them. We'll go from Scott City, Kansas to Carrollton, Missouri. Now what this is going to do is show you elevation. See that in the bottom? That's your elevation. Now what you can do is you can actually turn on, I believe you can turn on some details here. See this thing called airgram? Click that. And this is essentially what's called a cross section in the atmosphere. it shows you along this line, watch the line, the motion along that line. It shows you your temperature and your winds as you go across that line. And these are winds from the surface. So this is a vertical profile. So this is from the surface at the bottom to about 200 meters above, or 200 millibars. So you can see your jet stream on top, and at the bottom you can see your surface winds, and then you can see your temperatures in the vertical as well. Then as we go horizontal, we're just going from Scott City to Carlton. You can move this around, which is kind of cool, and it'll change at the bottom. So you can actually find fronts using this. So that's pretty cool. And you can, obviously move it into the future. So you can kind of find like where little areas of temperature gradients and fronts are and where the jet stream's at. So very cool feature there. And then VFR is going to show you your, this is more for like aviation and space and helicopters and all that. So you can actually see cloud ceiling, cloud top, visibility. This is more for those types of things, and you can see this is for planes, cloud tops, warnings, all sorts of cool stuff there. Boating information, obviously that's going to be better for the ocean. So you got little presets for different types of people in different positions, and so that's cool. There's a little bit of detail about your route. You can actually download coordinates and all that, and you can save those if you're planning like a vacation somewhere and you want to look for the flight and how the flight could be. It's something you could do. Save the settings and then come back and import them again. Kind of cool there. So that's a really cool feature. Another feature you can do is the sounding here. Now the sounding is another vertical profile of the atmosphere. This is a whole nother tutorial in of itself. Just click on a location. It shows you your temperature, dew point, and winds through the vertical of the atmosphere. So really cool there. You can zoom in if you want and zoom out depending on where you want that. And so that's a really good handy feature. So that's about it for this kind of tutorial for windy.com. It's there's lots of features on here, and I continue just to randomly discover new gems each day. I'll definitely have more updates on this channel if I find any more of these, and I think we'll start to use this more and more in the future on this channel, especially if I do live streams, because this is really good for live streams. And we'll have some really awesome views of storm systems and stuff like that. So be sure to subscribe for that. Subscribe for more weather forecasting tutorials. And share this with a friend if you found this useful, if you know someone interested in this. And hope you have a great day, and we'll see you soon.